What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Diablo 3 guide. This is going to be going over, we're going to talk a little bit about in-game, right? Kind of defining what in-game is and, kind of the activities you should be doing after you reach 70, after you, like, get a build going, kind of what is your ultimate purpose, right? Diablo has always been about, grinding and just going after better loot. Now, we're going to talk about, like, what that kind of means in the terms of, like, Diablo 3 and its in-game, and I'm going to try to touch on as much of it in detail as I can. So if you are a new player, hopefully after this video you have a good idea of what you should be doing to progress your character and to kind of like reach whatever goal you might have. Alright, so a lot of people are going to have different goals when it comes to the end game in Diablo 3. Most of the time it's going to be leaderboard pushing, right? People completing high-end GRs. And by high-end, by high level, that usually, like I have here on the screen, that's like 10, that's 111, to 150, okay? In my opinion, GR 1 to 75 is considered low tier. That's not difficult at all. I mean, 75, GR 75 is the equivalency of Torment 16, okay? And I don't consider Torment 16 being in-game, right? And like mid-tier would be like 60 or 76 to like 110. And then obviously high tier would be like 111 to 150. You also want to be using a high tier build, right? You can find these all over YouTube. Go to diablofans.com, go to Icy Veins. There's builds, there's meta builds. In the game, there's nothing like kind of new in the game. Like maybe the past few seasons we've gotten new sets and everything that kind of shaken up the meta. But everything's pretty much solved at this point. So you definitely want to be using like a high-end, high tier build. And then also one of the big goals for a lot of people is, getting that build complete, but then also having all ancients and some primals, so that you can have augments on everything, fully decked out. You also don't want any unnecessary stats on any of your gear for your build, right? That's kind of like you start getting into like the min-maxing, as you'll hear it called. You just really kind of like 1% gains near the end just to squeeze out every little bit of toughness or damage you can later on down the road. Also, you want to like get augments on all your gear as well too. That's a big goal for a lot of people, and we're talking about like high level augments. You like level 100 plus, 120, 130, 140 like level gems, 150 level gems. The ultimate goal for like your augments. And then obviously all your equipped, the legendary gems that you're using, you want to get those as high as possible too, because that just feeds into your build as well. And then lastly, obviously, like Paragon, you want to reach an ungodly amount of Paragon, because it scales really, really well. And it's a big player in the progression game, right? The more Paragon you have, the better you're going to do. And you're going to get Paragon by doing a lot of things. But, there are things that, affect it more. There are activities that affect Paragon and everything, really. So we're going to touch on that as best we can. So the way I break it down kind of is like, think about the end game as being like 3 pillars, okay? So you have bounties, you have Nephilim rifts, and you have greater rifts. Each of these, if you want to like really push the leaderboards, if you want to like get really high GRs or high Paragon, like you're going to have to do all 3 of these. Even bounties, I know everybody hates doing bounties, but when you're doing bounties, you're getting materials that you need for like crafting, you're getting DBs, but most importantly, you get bounty mats. Bounty mats are used for, reforging legendaries that you're trying to get either ancient or primal or with the right rolls. Doing stuff in the cube, kind of like all around, extracting stuff in the cube. Bounty mats are one of those things that you just need an infinite amount of, and especially in a season when you're just like constantly, searching for the next better piece of gear, and also crafting gear. Like Captain Crimson's, trimmings, that stuff requires bounty mats to make, and you got make those to get like ancient versions of them and all kinds of stuff. So bounties are just a very integral part of the end game. Nephilim rifts, hands down without saying, you have to do Nephilim rifts in order to get keystones, right? It's required, and also it's a great source of like gold, because you want to be empowering every greater rift that you do, because you want to maximize the amount of upgrades for your legendary gems when you do greater rifts. And finally, greater rifts. Greater rifts are like the number one, the big kahuna of the end game, right? that's where you're gonna be getting, the most Paragon points experience, because, when you close a Greater Rift, the experience is multiplicative, as opposed to closing a normal Nephilim Rift. It's, additive. You tend to get more blood shards in Greater Rifts as well too, and also you have to do Greater Rifts to upgrade legendary gems for augments and all the stuff that you're wearing. So my main strategy when, thinking about these three things is I usually dedicate, like if I'm really going to push a leaderboard, I'll focus one day all on bounties. Just do, public games, split bounties all day as much as I can. The next day I'll do normal rifts to get gold and to get keys stockpiled. And then day 3, I just sit there and do greater rifts all day. I do greater rifts until I have no more keys. I can't empower whichever comes first. Like if I get to the point where I can't empower my next rift, I'll just jump into a normal and kind of start the whole process over. I usually save bounty mats and reforging stuff like that for really big problem pieces. Mainly I play Demon Hunter mostly, so quivers, getting all the right stats on a quiver, and especially ancient. I'll probably more or less use my reforging for slots like that, or Flavor of Times, or things that are otherwise really expensive to get from Kadala. If you've ever heard of this in-game loop or gameplay loop, a lot of people like to throw that around when it comes to gaming and kind of the environment of late game and in the industry. What it basically means is what you're gonna be doing, what you're continually be doing in your day-to-day, right? And so in the terms of Diablo 3, right, you're gonna be continually farming keystones always. You're gonna farm them, use them. You're always going to be needing to get crafting materials, death breaths, bounty mats, right? You always got to keep yourself stocked with gold, like I said, to empower your greater rifts so you can maximize your, level ups. You want to pick up every gem. I know a lot of people don't like picking up gems, right? But you should pick up every gem that you come across, because, in order to swap stats from the mystic on rings and amulets, it takes certain different types of gems that your build may not even be using, but also you can convert those gems to the gems you do need with essences to help you with augments. So pick up every gem, pick up every piece of gear, everything, right? And also you gotta you're gonna be constantly upgrading your equipped gems, and also just constantly leveling legendary gems for augments, because if you level a gem to 100 and throw it on as an augment, that gem is going to drop again at rank 0 the next raider if you do, and you're going to always be leveling gems to feed these augments, right? And then you're always going to be, when you're doing bounties, you're going to be going into public games or groups and doing split bounty runs, because it's absolutely ridiculous to run all 25 bounties solo. There's no point in it. Unless you're doing solo self-bound, there's absolutely no reason why you should be doing bounties by yourself, right? And right now in the current season 21, with so many god DHs, a split bounty run can take, I think the longest bounty public game that I've actually been in has only been 6 minutes, right? It's ridiculously fast. So stockpile on bounty mats if you need them non-season, because it's a ridiculously fast season, which that's one thing you're always gonna be doing, just bounties. Plus bounties, you're always gonna be getting other things other than bounty materials from doing bounties as well. Every system feeds into it itself. And then using your blood shards, you're always going to be dumping blood shards into Kadala to be farming the ancient replacements for the gear that you have, always looking for the next best thing, and then salvaging. Whenever I do normal rifts, I'm picking up everything that I can, because I'm going to salvage everything that's rare or magical I get from Kadala. Most of the time when I'm farming GRs, I don't even worry about upgrading it. I just kind of salvage it, and that's where I get a lot of my crafting mats actually. It's just by using a lot of blood shards and just salvaging everything. And then lastly, just Paragon. You're just going to need Paragon. I usually don't worry about it in the beginning. I usually don't start really focusing on it till I'm close to 2500 or so, even 1500. But 2500, once you hit 2500 Paragon, it slows down a lot. So you have to kind of do more pools of reflection strategy, grabbing pool of reflection right before you close a rift, some of that manipulation to start getting the most out of it once you get past 2500, right? So just like a summary, this is like stuff you're gonna be doing on a daily basis, all the time. It never ends. This is like the loop. The next thing I'm gonna go over is the 5 activities that you should be doing in the end game of Diablo 3, right? Number 1, like we've already talked about it, I'm gonna beat the dead horse. Bounty caches. You need bounty caches. And I've like kind of ranked what the benefit of each of these activities are, and from high to low, so you can kind of see what each activity kind of specializes in. But as you can tell, there's a lot of bleed over. You get a lot of things overall, as you do all these things. So bounty caches, this is based on like Torment 16 difficulty. It's the best source for bounty materials. You get like 22 for the act, whatever cache you open. You get a small amount of death breaths from the bounty cache now too. You get some crafting materials, which is pretty low, and then you get blood shards as well, which is pretty low. I think it's like, I don't even remember. It's pretty low compared to like things like these are going to be comparing towards each other, right? So you're going to get the lowest amount of blood shards from a bounty cache as opposed to like a greater rip, Nephilim rip, challenge rip. You know what I'm saying? And you get some gems as well as some gold in that bounty cache as well. And then also whenever you're running bounties, if you're kind of this is like kind of outside the scope of the bounty caches, but if you have like Nemesis bracers on and you're killing every champion elite that you come across while you're finishing bounties, you're gonna get a lot more DBs. That's why the DBs aren't set to high here, because this is only in the scope of just the cache itself. But if you actually like killing stuff as you go, and you'll find goblins and stuff doing bounties, which helps your materials and everything. The next thing is going to be challenge rips. Challenge rips are set every single Monday, okay? And they're usually, not hard. We've had a few in the past like month or so. We've had one, I think it's like, what was it, 160? Was freaking horrible. You're going to get a low amount of bounty materials compared to caches. You get about a moderate size. You get like 35 DBs out of this. You get some crafting materials. You get blood shards. You get like 400 and something blood shards. Challenge ripped, right? And then you have a low amount of gold too. Most of the time, if I'm not really trying to push like leaderboards, or if I'm going to save a lot of my reforging and stuff till later in the season, I kind of skip bounties in the beginning, because if I hit the challenge ripped every single week, I'll have enough bounty mats to do just extractions for the journey and stuff like that. And then at the end, when I really have to focus on the cube, then I can really dedicate a lot of time to doing bounties. But I think you should do both if you can, work it into your play schedule. Number 3 is going to be vaults and the cow level. You get these from like either the vault can be opened from a goblin spawn when you're doing bounties, or if you put a puzzle ring in the cube. Same with the cow level, if you put the cow stick in the cube. And I don't have like kind of like low to high on these, because it can be just really dependent on like the goblins you get inside the vault, and kind of what spawns inside the cow level as well. But this activity can give you bounty material, or not bounty materials, but this activity can give you a good amount of death breaths. It can give you crafting materials. It can give you blood shards if you find like blood thieves. You get a good amount of like legendary items if you find like a blue goblin, and gems. And I do have it set to high gold on this one, because you do get a lot of gold inside the vault. And if you use a boon of the hoarder, you'll get a lot of gold in the cow level as well. Nephilim rifts, right? You get a high amount of DBs. If you're using like sages, the sages set that doubles the amount of DBs that drop. If your build can't support that, that's great. My non-season barbarian, who is a Rend or Whirlwind, I swapped out his Crimson set for sages, and I average, doing a Nephilim rift full clear, I get about 100, a little bit around like 90 to 100 DBs per run. So, if you're able to squeeze sages into your build, it's great. Even without sages, if you kill everything, you do a full clear, you're going to get a high amount of DBs. Crafting match, you'll get a high material or a high value of that as well, if you pick up everything and salvage it and all that good stuff. Blood shards are kind of on the mid level, right? You're capped at, Torment 16 at that point. So, it's only so high you can go on the blood shards for the Rift Guardian kill. And then you get a lot of gold, especially if you use Boon of the Hoarder, right? And that's kind of like the strategy for like grabbing gold for empowering greater rifts. If also legendary items, if you pick up everything, if you open all the chests that are in there, you're gonna get a good amount of legendary items as well. If you full clear, you might have to like make a trip to town at least once in a Nephilim Rift. And then obviously Greater River Keystones. Greater River Keystones are exclusive to Nephilim Rifts. That means you can't get them anywhere else in the game, and they fuel the end game. So that locks in Nephilim Rifts as being like a required activity. And you get some gems too, and running Nephilim Rifts. And I'd say the XP is like low, right? Because you're capped at T16 in that. Next is our last one is obviously Greater Rifts. You're gonna be spending probably 90% of your time running Greater Rifts, right? And this is based on like a GR75 as far as the amounts, but legendary gem upgrades. It's the only place you can do them. Blood shard limit upgrade. It's the only place it will happen. And the way that works is like you start off with just being able to hold 500 blood shards, and now for every Greater Rift solo tier that you go up, it increases that limit by 10. And then you get a high amount of blood shards as well, since you can go well beyond 75, well beyond the equivalency of like Torment 16. And then also you get a high amount of XP as well, considering that closing the rift in itself is multiplicative, and that's what's different from graders to normals when it comes to XP. That's why you want to like stack like pull to reflection. Grab a pull reflection and then close the rift, and that's going to give you more net gain. And then obviously like legendary items. You get a lot of legendary items from running. And usually what I do here is town is lava. Think about it that way. What I do is, I'll run a Greater Rift. I'll come out. You always want to be like playing and doing stuff in what I like to call meta town, which is New Tristram. Act 1, it's the best town to do this kind of in-game grind, because there's a very short amount of distance between like your town portal and your stash and Kane's book. There's a short amount of distance from the blacksmith to Kadala to the obelisk. It allows you to stay in town for a very short amount of time. Right, so you run your rift, you come out of your TP, you run over, you identify your legendaries, close the rift, salvage, use your blood shards, and then salvage again if you have to, and then dump stuff in your stash and get back in. That would be like, what you do in like probably a public game, because you have a lot of like time. Usually what I do in Greater Rifts is, when I finish a rift, I'll come out, I'll close it, I'll salvage only rare and magicals, and then I'll jump back into a rift. And that takes about 3 or 4 runs to a Greater Rift before my inventory is full. When my inventory gets to the point where it's almost full, my blood shards are almost capped out, is when I'll stop and I'll use all my blood shards and identify everything, right? So you should be doing like 3 to 4 Greater Rift runs before you stop to ID or salvage legendaries or use blood shards. And that's the fastest way to ensure that you get the most amount of legendaries seen per hour, which is going to up your chances of seeing primals, right? And it just kind of makes it feel a little bit better too, so you're not like so sluggish on getting upgrades or whatever the case may be. But yeah, that's pretty much a summary of the end game, right? The end game loop, it's it's the same. You just do it a lot. It's really grindy when you start getting to the point where you're trying to put on like 130, 120, 130 augments on your gear. It gets really, really repetitive. And when you start, running, when you get past like, 2500 Paragon, and it goes really slow, right? It gets very demoralizing. A lot of people end up quitting when they actually like get to around 2500 or so, or like, they just kind of stop, really doing the grind, the end game thing. But hope this video helped and explained kind of like in-game activity and, kind of the play style you do when you're trying to like achieve those goals I talked about. But yeah, good luck out there, and see you next time. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit the subscribe button for more Diablo content. Hit the like button, leave me a comment down below. Also check out these other videos that I think you might be interested in. And like always, peace out. See you guys next time.